Mr. Raju Kanoria, the incoming president of FICCI, Nana Kidwai, Siddharth Billa, Mr. Didar Singh, the Secretary, DIPP, Mr. Saurabh Chandra, Commerce Secretary of India, Sir Rao, past presidents of FICCI, Rajan, YK, Modi, Harshpati Singhania, Unkar, and other friends, senior officials, captains of industry, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very happy to be here with you for the final session that you are having. I know that you have had an absorbing day beginning with the Prime Minister inaugurating and many of my cabinet colleagues participating in some of the sessions. This AGM of FICCI is coming at a time when India has seen one of the most testing periods of the last 12 years. When we talk of our economic growth, the kind of slowdown, the moderation, the new capital formation not taking place, with non-utilization of the existing capacity, the flow of credit slowing down, the flow of investment slowing down, and generally, over the last 2 years, a period of pessimism, to some extent because of the shrill political discourse and the partisan agenda of our opponents. I personally feel that it had an adverse impact. We are not the only country which has experienced partisan politics impacting decision making, impacting policy formulation. It is happening with the largest economy of the world, though the most indebted also, United States of America. But considering the fact that we remain an emerging and a developing economy, one issue that needs to be seriously reflected: did India deserve this at this stage, considering the confidence of the Indian industry, our entrepreneurship, the commitment of a government to reforms, led by a Prime Minister who was the architect or the author of the 1991 reforms and economic liberalization. You all are aware, in the previous sessions would have discussed these issues as to where we are vis-a-vis our own growth, job creation, wealth creation, compared to the rest of the world. Not that we are doing very badly, because the others are doing poorly. That should not give us any room for comfort. There has been a general decline or a slowdown beginning way back in 2008 autumn. That was the first time that the reality had sunk in of the economic crisis. But would we seem to conveniently forget that this was preceded by one of the most serious financial crises. That made it severe, and all the economies were affected, and I'm talking to people who understand this subject better. But that was a time, I was saying earlier in the day, when our economy, other emerging economies, major economies, were in a position to intervene. They had the resources, because these crises came riding after high economic growth, GDP growth in all the major countries. So the governments had the resources to intervene, to give the incentives. We gave 3.5% of our GDP in 3 different packages, which you call them stimulus, you call them incentives, whatever. And it led to some sort of revival and recovery. And the emerging economies did rebound quicker compared to the major economies or the developed economies. But the fact remains that the global economy did not recover. We were taught all alphabets of English language, and whether the recovery will be U-shaped, V-shaped, W-shaped. That means the double dip recession. I think the W has also happened. When you look at Europe, when you look at Americas, and we look at ourselves and China. We have never gone into recession, but could we afford to come down from 9.5% GDP growth to 5.5%? These 4 percentage points of lost GDP means minimum 16 million jobs lost. At least 1.5 million jobs directly per year, and another 3 which are built around the direct employment. Now this has a serious social dimension. When we talk of economy, people don't understand, and if they do, they pretend that they don't. That if Prime Minister talks of reforms, if the Finance Minister and I talk of fast-tracking reforms agenda, it's not only creating wealth, though that's not a curse, but it also addressing larger issues for an economy which is still confronted with monumental challenges. And I would like to say that directly. For a country of 1.2 billion people, an aspirational society, country which has institutions, which has human resources, we may not have as much of natural resources when it comes to many of the things or the commodities which are needed for powering the high level of economic growth, particularly energy and some of the other commodities. But could we afford at this stage the kind of partisan politics which did trap major decisions or delayed some of the policy rollouts? In my view, very honestly speaking, not only as a minister of the government, but as a citizen of the Republic of India, it's a great disservice done to this country. If you don't grow at the level at which we were growing, or we don't climb back to that high level of economic growth, there's a social dimension. And that's very clear. In a world where the economy is rebalancing, where the axis of economic growth has changed from north to south, or north-south axis to south-south, where Asia, Africa and Latin America are major players in the economic discourse of the world, where the emerging and the developing economies are today contributing anywhere between 40% to 48% of the global GDP. And on a year-on-year basis, their contribution may be above 75% of the global GDP. And these are the countries which are populated, densely populated. The countries which have been historically victims of colonization, underdevelopment, and also deprivation. And these are the countries which are seeking to move forward and to be competitive and to be leaders in today's world. That's exactly what has happened in the last quarter of a century, particularly the 21st century discourse, which is different from the earlier discourses. I was earlier talking at another economic conclave a couple of hours ago, going back to the 17th century, 18th century, 19th, 20th and 21st. But the last 2 centuries, we were not there. Whether it was Europe or the Americas. But today we are there, Asia is there. And what the world is seeing is a rebalancing of the global economy, or a historical course correction. Now that's where we are, at an inflection point, where there is no country in the world in a position to address the current challenges. At the same time, we have to be mindful and conscious of our own. Therefore, it's not an option that what should be our target or our objective. For me, rapid economic growth and industrialization is a national priority and an imperative. India can ill afford not to do that. There are many initiatives which would have been discussed about infrastructure, about reforms, and you are aware of them. But when we are looking at what should be the priorities of India for our industry, the government, the policy makers, first and foremost is job creation and wealth creation. And when we create resources, we have to be also reminded that the resources or the wealth that we create may notionally belong to individuals or institutions or corporates, but these are national assets or national resources which are being created. Whether it's a big refinery being built, a big industry being built, the number of citizens of this country who work there. So industry in some respect is living up to, not exactly, to what Mahatma Gandhi would have said in 1931. That's what I was looking at. Because whatever you are creating, or together we in partnership between the government and the industry, is something that can be easily described as national asset creation, because those assets would remain. Whether it's Jamshedpur or Jamnagar, the biggest refinery of the world, those are national assets. And each one of you and your predecessors, your ancestors have created that. We have taken some conscious decisions. Despite the cliche or the impression that was sought to be created of policy paralysis, everybody got carried away. Because, it's easy to use 2 words which everybody is using. I do not know whether Prime Minister commented on that. Policy delays, yes. In a democracy, you have to create consensus. You have to talk to everyone. The constituency is complex and diverse. It brings in your voters, your citizens, the states of the union, different political parties, philosophies, industry, and the society at large. Looking back, whether there was actually a paralysis, I would reject it. Decision making became difficult. But I want FICCI and our industry leaders to take one message. One of the biggest policy rollouts in recent history has not been fully absorbed. That's the national manufacturing policy. To my mind, that will transform India. That's an investment in India's future. We are a country primarily agrarian. When you look at the dependence of our citizens, we're 55%, 60% or 1.2 billion on agriculture. But agriculture share in our GDP is 16%. 16% is the share of manufacturing. Now, can India afford to stay there? This has been stagnating for quite a while. Not that manufacturing is not increasing, but so has your GDP. If you're 0.5 trillion, you're 1.8 trillion. You should have become 2 trillion by now, if not more. But for what has happened, that ever since President Obama in his first visit left the shores of India, we have never seen a day or a discourse which is conducive to growth or creating a congenial environment to reassure the world that this is a country which is self-confident. Please go and engage with India and invest in India. That's why I said the biggest disservice done. But at the same time, when there are job losses across the globe, youth unemployment at the highest, this policy I refer to will address something which, without it, will make this country ungovernable. We'll have 200 million young Indians joining the workforce in the next 10 years. What do you do with them? Where do you provide them jobs and sustainable incomes? But in the manufacturing sector, yes, India has become a leader in the services, a global leader, not in all the services, mind you. But yes, we are, when we look at the share of services in our GDP, it's much more. But beyond a point, my understanding informs me that only manufacturing will sustain the growth of the services sector too. Otherwise, services will not grow. You need a strong manufacturing base. And if you don't address this, there's a social dimension of unrest and anger of the young people. When we were working on the manufacturing policy and fighting the turf battles, I want to share one thing with you people. I was traveling abroad when I read a news report. We were already working on the policy that in Bareilly there was enrollment or the recruitment camp to recruit 100 constables for the ITBP, for which 103,000 young Indians turned up. The interviews were cancelled. There was rioting. They were returning, many on the rooftops of the trains. 43 died. I don't know how many people registered. And I said to myself, India cannot afford this. Our democracy itself will get subverted unless and until you address the social dimension and job creation. Now, this policy that the government has given, it was rolled out. Cabinet took the decision 24th of October last year. Before that and after that, I have never stopped hearing the word policy paralysis. Why? Those who were talking of policy paralysis did not take notice of this policy, which aims at raising the share of manufacturing in our GDP from 16% to 26% in one decade, creating 100 million skilled jobs, creating self-governed, greenfield integrated industrial townships, 10 of which stand notified. Master plans of 7 have been completed in record time. Why this country is not talking about positives? Why are we seized by a mindset? And I will urge the media here that you have a responsibility as citizens of this country to create an environment when young Indians feel that their aspirations would be met in this democracy. and the decision makers are conscious of their future, because there's a younger generation which is the stakeholder in a nation's future. There cannot be a greater hurt caused to a country like ours when you destroy the inner confidence, though I do believe that nobody can do that, irrespective of the shrill discourse. These national investment and manufacturing zones, for which now we have our major foreign partners showing keen interest. Without naming the countries, two big ones are keenly interested to develop one of the port cities. It's a different matter that how that will pan out. Some other major partner countries are also keen to be there to establish these industrial townships. Now, land is an issue. I know that land question was raised, Raju also mentioned. And here's one FICCI president who has been really very serious. I'm not saying the previous friends are not, but also about how to address these challenges and change the discourse. This is where we have addressed that challenge. Because these are being developed by the Government of India in partnership with the states of the Republic, where the land is the equity of the state governments. Investor, Indian or foreign, doesn't have to go looking for land approvals. These will be self-governing. We have for the first time invoked an article in the Constitution of our Republic, Article 243Q. You don't have to go to a local authority. These will be governed through an SPV, where industry is very much represented. The trunk infrastructure is being funded by the Government of India. Japan has moved in as a major partner for 7 which fall along the Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor. Again, the biggest infrastructure project conceived and currently being executed anywhere in the world. When you look at the size of these townships, averaging from 200, 300 square kilometer to 900 square kilometers. These are not SEZs. These are different. There's incentivization in every manner for skills institutes, technology institutes, for SMEs, for acquisition of technologies, patented technologies, creating a technology acquisition fund. Now, I know that when we were doing it, there were painful turf battles. That happens. Always when you want to make a change, if you want to make a change in your own house, whether you live in a flat or a bungalow, whether you want to change the furnishing, there'll always be issues whether your wife will agree or the son or the daughter-in-law or whatever. Here you are changing the policy discourse. Here you are changing the turf controls. But we have done it. This message industry must take to the world. Come and be with us. Once India succeeds in establishing these 12 industrial townships, India will be the workshop of the world. India will be a leader in manufacturing. And I hope I am alive when this thing happens. I hope to see that happen in my lifetime. There has been talk, I'm told that the leader of the opposition also came and they gave their own words of wisdom about the recent decisions. There are many decisions. We don't expect generosity when it comes to political debates. In democracy, there are different political parties. They have their own ideology, their own viewpoints. But I would urge my opponents to remember that India belongs to all of us. It doesn't belong to a Congress or a BJP. It belongs to the people of the Republic of India. Therefore, whatever we do or say must contribute to the national good and national development, not otherwise. You all would have heard about the debate and the discourse. Now, what has been debated, discussed and voted, why should it be rediscussed? There should be something new. Shouldn't it be? I feel sad that when I have to react to something which has been discussed, debated, voted upon. Though never before in the history of India's parliamentary democracy, an executive decision has been dragged to parliamentary debate and vote. When learned leaders in the opposition in both the houses, and I have no quarrel with them as individuals, but saying that there is nothing wrong in that, I would like to tell you. Let anybody get up and show me one instance where the separation of powers under the Constitution of India has not been respected by a government or by the opposition or by the judiciary. Policy formulation is clearly the domain of the executive. That cannot be debated, that cannot be negotiated, that can never be compromised and shall never be compromised. Legislature legislates. They make your laws, acts. And the implementation domain is that of the judiciary to see that the constitution is respected. The laws of the land are respected. Now, if the executive decides for the judiciary for the legislature or otherwise, what will happen to us? Are we having more wisdom today than the framers of the constitution? I was told in Lok Sabha or in Rajya Sabha, both by Sushma Swaraj and Arun Jaitley, what's wrong? That you, when you were in opposition, also brought in one particular matter for parliamentary discussion, that was Balco. The Balco, I pitied them. Executive policy decision and privatization of a 100% government-owned company, these are two separate issues and they were confusing the two. When there is a company which is government company established through an act of parliament, if there is privatization, you have to go back to parliament. But let me take you guys back. What happened? Defense, pharmaceuticals, telecom, airports 100%, pharmaceuticals 100%, telecom 74%. Defense original proposal was 100%. Before Shri Atal Bihari Vajpayee left for the US visit in 2000, but 26% got opened. Those who are saying there should have been discussion, did they ever discuss this with the opposition, with the country, with the stakeholders, with the industry? The answer is a loud no. Let anybody come and tell me that did they discuss this with anyone? Am I objecting to that? No. Because we respect constitutional democracy, the elected government of the day had taken the decision. Did we reverse those decisions? The answer is no. That's the difference. I'm told that there were wisdom given that India can do anything and we welcome FDI. How do you welcome FDI? When you create an environment where even domestic investor would run away. When you create an atmosphere of suspicion and distrust. When you question every businessman's intentions. When you create an impression that all of them are dishonest, corrupt. When you accuse them by insinuation that they have bribed someone. When they accuse the decision makers, the civil servants, of acting on some consideration. Who will take decisions in this country? I was told that the leader of the opposition said that there should be a debate. And for the debate, the CBI, the Comptroller, Auditor General, and everybody should be invited. I'm appalled. Did you ever hear that Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee is the Prime Minister? I have great respect for the man. I'm sure that if he was around, he would dismiss all these people. That you have a debate in which you call the leader of opposition, the Prime Minister of the country, you call the CBI, the CAG, whom else? And then take decisions. Wonderful. CVC and who else? Maybe police inspectors also? Excise, custom officials? What a grand idea of non-governance or misgovernance or subverting governance. That's how I would put it. Now we were told that why should we be said that FDI is good, but nobody should tell us how to sell dal chawal. Who can tell Indians how to sell dal chawal or anywhere in the world? Right from a village shop, from a small kasbah, to a small town, to a big town, to a state capital, or to the metropolis. Business activity takes place, commerce takes place. It has happened for centuries, hasn't it? Who are engaged in this job? In Parliament they called them that India will become a nation of sales boys and sales girls. And they did say, don't insult our sons and daughters. Those who work in a shop or a shopping mall, these are not owners. These are our children, our citizens. And through their labor and the dignity of the labor, they earn their livelihood. Don't insult them. That's my message. Now, when you have organized retail in India, when you are in government, you are talking of 100% without conditions. That was a cabinet note which I gave to the Parliament. Change of seat means change of philosophy, ideology, change of thinking. And new wisdom dawns that this is bad. This means that when you were in governance, whatever you were doing without thinking. You had no knowledge, no wisdom. That's a very serious matter because you opened up aviation, defense, telecom, pharmaceuticals. This means you did without having any wisdom or knowledge or understanding about India. Which suddenly you get in 2012, which you didn't have in the year 2000. It's a strange argument. You disagree with us, but don't confuse the country. Suddenly in 2012, like 1991, India is being told that East India Company will come and take this country over. Well, when I was not there or around, and everybody present in this room, an East India Company was there. But one thing I can tell you. There is no company, East India or West India or Great India or any company, which can take over the Republic of India, a proud nation of 1.2 billion people. Nobody is born. Does anybody have the power to buy India, to purchase India, to take over India? 1991, many of our own industry leaders, because this was a non-competitive environment, captive market, they also were fearful that I have no hesitation to be blunt and direct. Then they said that, well, East India Company will come, and a Bombay Club was formed. You remember that? YK? Now what happened? Or what happened exactly? It is your companies. Here I see Habib Khurakiwala buying over how many German companies you bought? 2 or 3? 500 million. Many years ago you told me, before Onkar Kanwar became the FICCI president. He told me that he has bought 2 German companies or acquired them. Tata's goes, he acquires Tetley Tea, Land Rover, Jaguar, Chorus Steel. Who's buying whom? Some of the biggest mergers and acquisitions in the world have been made by you guys. And we are proud of that. And we support you for that. Now somebody coming and telling you that you can be bought over, I reject that. Now you have organized retail in the country. Don't we have? At that time, I still remember 1990s when McDonald came and this, what is that chicken? Kentucky Fried Chicken. KFC. And somebody else. They say, what will happen to this poor Nathu, Nirula, Bikaner, all over. Now, do you know how many stores this Haldiram has in Europe and America? 85. Bikaner wala more than Haldiram. McDonald is forced to make aloo tikki because Indian palate is different. Who can buy this country? Can somebody sell you something which you don't want to eat? Again on retail, you are the second largest producer of fruits and vegetables in the world. You are the second largest producer of food grains in the world. You are the largest dairy producer of the world. Your cattle population, the livestock, is the largest in the world. Your post-harvest losses are 35-40% in fruits and vegetables. If you are bringing in foreign money, it's a question of Indian rupees because domestic organized retail is allowed. Now, if you say, okay, bring in euros, you bring in me this sterling or dollars, why are they having belly aches, can I ask? This country needs foreign exchange. When you buy petrol, when you buy gas, when you buy fertilizer, do you pay? You don't control the global market prices. So if I say that I want to bring precious foreign exchange into my country, new technologies, why is anybody objecting? If you really believe in the strength and might of Mother India, Bharat Mata, to kya takleef hai? That's my question. If we don't get foreign exchange, with the rising trade account deficit, with the rising current account deficit, which has a direct bearing on the country's economy, our stability, also on the valuation of our currency, who benefits? In our absence, this is said that let there be a debate. I say it with all sense of responsibility. I love a good debate. Let them come now. I am willing to debate with the critics and the opponents any day without notice. You tell me. Decide the place, decide the forum, and I'll come. Because we don't want this impression to be sustained. Partisan politics apart, even largest democracy is trapped in this, and the most powerful economy is trapped in it. In US, no decisions are made, they say partisan politics. What will happen to democracies? Will we decide issues on the streets? Democracy is when people decide. You elect the government and trust the government. We are the elected government. 2014, let's see. We are not running away. We'll fight the election and we'll see what the people will say. But don't have a daily discourse in 5 years when people have given a mandate to a government for 5 years. And this has become a favorite pastime. Drawing room gossip, cocktail circuit gossip, media gossip, 24/7. What will happen? Will the government survive? Will the government not? We are here to survive. We are not going away anywhere. So those who are trying to subvert the institutions, subvert the government, they better be on notice that this country is watching. And I trust the wisdom of my people. It's not a question whether you are a PhD or you are a villager smoking a hookah in the panchayat. If people of India did not have the wisdom, democracy in a country where literacy rate was less than 5% would not have survived. I owe the democracy of this country, as much as to the founding fathers of the Republic, to the poor people of this country, who believe that they should be participants and decision makers, who believe that if their elected representatives are not performing and not delivering, we have the power as a people to change them. But I don't want the power of the people, of the electorate, 714 million in the last election to be precise, to be usurped by either the street or those who have not digested defeat. That we can't afford. So my message to you is, we are a committed government, focused government. We are as much passionate about India as all of you. Let that never be called to question. What is most hurtful is when your commitment to your country while making important decisions is being questioned by partisan politics. Do I have to go on a daily basis to seek a certificate or endorsement of my thinking or approach or policy initiative or my decisions as a Minister of the Republic of India, that I should be perpetually on a regular call at the doorstep of Nitin Gadkari, that is his correct name, or Prakash Karat? I can't do that. And why should I? And I'm sure that the people of this country will never have the misfortune to have either of them as leaders. You all are here. FICCI has done a great job. Raju, you and your team. And now Nana is coming in. We've had a great experience working with all of you, traveling together. There was a time when government and industry working together, questions would be raised. Am I right? And those questions were as if industry was taboo. Why should you talk to industry leaders? Why should political leaders be seen in the company of industry leaders? Something wrong, either with me or you? This is not how nations function or mature democracies. Those who have self-doubts will think that way. Those who are thinking about the country will not comment. It has to be a partnership. Who are the leaders of our industry? They are very proud citizens of the Indian Republic, like those who work in your industries or those who make the policies. This country cannot be compartmentalized. There has to be a clear, seamless integration between the people, the industry, the institutions, the government, to take this country to lofty heights. A place which this great country deserves to be a leader in the Committee of Nations, which we are capable of. If we don't think big, we'll not reach where we should. What we do today is an investment in India's future, not in monetary terms, but well beyond that. It's the younger generation who are the stakeholders in this country's future. Let's have faith in ourselves and do what is best for our country. Thank you.